I still think it's crypto spring. We're not yet in summer, but you're just getting the later stage of spring where you start to have a few nice days in a row. It's exactly the Bitcoin halving cycle. It's exactly the economic cycle. It's exactly the US election cycle. They're all the same thing. It's this super cycle, this everything code. And we're into that point of the cycle now where the balance sheet should start rising to cover the debts from the previous cycle. You end up with giant banks that are being supported by the government. So they purposely made too big to fail banks. What does that mean? All the others can fail. We don't care.
The Bitcoin bull is not just awakened, but charged with unprecedented strength. In recent weeks, Bitcoin shattered the 30K mark, delivering its most robust quarterly returns since the unforgettable all-time high in October of 2021, boasting an astonishing 70%. Weekly returns have skyrocketed to an impressive 36%, firmly establishing Bitcoin as the undisputed champion of asset classes year to date. It's an exciting time for crypto. The prices are going up, and it might stick around for a while. It's important to understand the details of this shift and what it means for your investments. If you are looking for crypto insights to make strategic moves in this dynamic market, you are in for a treat. Let's see what Raoul Pal, the maestro of market insights, has shared about the impending bull market. Bull market backdrop, the end of the bear market.
It is. I'm back in Little Cayman. That was bull market backdrop. Yeah, and as you and I have talked about, I still think it's crypto spring. We're not yet in summer, but you're just getting the later stage of spring where you start to have a few nice days in a row. It seems that there was some story that BlackRock had already bought some buffer so they can sell ETF when it comes out. But I don't think that's a lot, but there's clearly new capital come into the space. We saw it with CoinShares, a few others starting to report inflows of capital. So that's new money going into the economy, and obviously a bunch of bored degens turn it into a lot of price rises. But then we had the other story that ignited. So Bitcoin had been strong anyway because of the ETF. ETH has been it was okay, but it's been pretty sideways for a while. The thing that really started igniting was both DeFi stuff. They came out of nowhere, really rallying, and that's often early season stuff. And the other was obviously Solana.
Minting NFTs on Solana.
Obviously, the numbers have changed dramatically because when I started looking at this, it was trading at 20.
Yeah.
And we've already gone up a lot since then. So these numbers keep halving every time you keep going up a lot. But my idea is somewhere between 500 and 1,000.
Okay.
Just depending what that market feels like. The Solana of this cycle. What is that going to be? I'm not good enough to pick those. You're better at picking the smaller stuff. I'm with a macro bet like this, it's like so much easier because it's so fucking obvious. It survived a crisis. It launches. The tech goes massively improving. The community's good. The only on Solana narrative is very good. Tolly is one of the best thought leaders in the entire space. You're like, okay, it seems like the highest quality bet. The other flip side of that, as I said, you're better at it than me, is I end up with the shrapnel of shame sitting in my wallet of
That's
all
fine.
of the things that I bought. And it is fine. It's like a VC. You don't know what's gonna fly, what's not. I just never had any of those fly. So I've just got a bunch of shame sitting in various wallets. Yeah. And so I actually prefer to hyper concentrate. I'm like, I know the bet I want to take. I think it's a really high quality risk reward. I'm just going to take that bet.
Bitcoin versus Ethereum.
It's really Solana and ETH. Yeah, nothing else adds up to much. It's just Solana and ETH, and of which Solana is the larger bet. I haven't held much Bitcoin for a while because, I look at this in terms of network effects, and my view is that more things are being built on Ethereum. It's a richer, deeper network. More use cases, and over time, I think the value of the Ethereum network will be more valuable than the Bitcoin network, unless something changes. Now, ordinals and stuff like that, maybe, let's see. And so it's just from that thesis alone that I haven't held much Bitcoin. I've just thought it'll underperform. Now, it always outperforms in crypto spring. the least risk asset in that space always outperforms at first. Then what happens as spring turns into summer, you start getting outperformance of alts, and particularly the large alts first, and then the smaller alts later. So there's nothing unusual about what's going on. Also very interesting to see the chart of of ETH Bitcoin, kind of the long-term weekly chart. I think altcoins have their own cycle. If you remember back to last time around, it was DeFi that came to life first. Seeing that now.
Yes.
I think that, Solana, like the standout, like ETH last time around, that comes up and everyone goes, okay, this is interesting. ETH should do really well, and then there'll be a lag before the real altcoin cycle starts. But that's coming soon as well. Even the wedge of altcoin market cap on TradingView.
Bitcoin versus QQQ.
Around the time Larry was saying what he said, the markets were starting to figure out that the real problem was this excess supply issuance of bonds, and that inflation wasn't going up, but bond yields kept rising. And it was that moment that gold and crypto picked up very quickly, is that the more bond yields go up, the more they started going up. That correlation changed. And that correlation was driven by the fact, I think, that the market knew if bond yields are going to go up like this, the Fed or the government or somebody's going to intervene. So you get closer to the cowbell, the stimulus, somebody's going to do something. So I think that was a really big factor in it, and things started taking off. It's like, okay, if this bond market's going to get out of control, then you need to hide somewhere. And also, the banks had started going down again as well, if you remember.
Yes.
Same period. I think they started breaking down a bit. Let me see when that date was. I'm sure it's about the same. October 16th, like the banks had this little peak and then started dropping like a stone. And so, again, the market's job is to forecast the probability of stimulus or a flight to safety. And Bitcoin always does well out of it. So that's what I think started it off. And I think Larry saying the same thing around the same time that the banks turned around, also adds fuel to the fire. I don't know if there's any economic data out that day, but there was probably something around that as well. What's going on is interest rates are too damn high, and they have to issue ongoing bonds to cover the deficits, but they have to roll the bonds from last 4 years, from 3 years ago, 4 years ago in the pandemic cycle, from 1% interest rate to 5% interest rates, or 5.5%. And the problem is, to do that, you have to issue yet more bonds to pay for that. So we're just getting awash with issuance. And this has been my argument about the everything code, is that there is no way governments can issue bonds at 5% interest when you're 100% of GDP in debt, because there's not enough economic growth to cover it. So the central bank has to buy it. And what's happening is, here we are pushing the central bank to buy it. Now, whether Janet's doing that on purpose is like, Jay, you're going to have to take this. But I think there's a game being played, is like, okay, we'll show the stress, we'll create the stress, we need to cut rates, we can roll this debt at lower levels. And if we can find the right excuse, like a recession, we can push it onto the Fed balance sheet. Every government refunded at zero, but for some weird reason, they did it between 3 and 5 years. That 3 and 5 year debt cycle just keeps rolling over. It's exactly the Bitcoin halving cycle. It's exactly the economic cycle. It's exactly the US election cycle. They're all the same thing. It's this super cycle, this everything code. And we're into that point of the cycle now where the balance sheet should start rising to cover the debts from the previous cycle.
And that's a wrap on our crypto updates. The stage is set for exciting times as Bitcoin kicks off a new bull cycle, bringing potential gains not just for itself, but for the whole crypto crew. It's a positive trend that could lift not just Bitcoin, but other cryptocurrencies too. We've decoded the basics of this journey. And as we continue to unravel the details, remember, the crypto adventure is about understanding, exploring, and making informed decisions. The future looks bright, and with knowledge by our side, we're ready for whatever the crypto world throws our way. Stay tuned for more updates as we navigate this dynamic market together.